Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be working on how to sew a quilted puff pillow. It is super easy. It is time consuming though, but it will be worth it in the end. So let's go ahead and let's jump into it. Ended up writing it down just to get an idea. Your main fabric is going to be 6 inches square, and then your scrap is going to be 5.5 inches. And I did my little design here of how many pieces I'm going to be using, and in total is going to be 50 pieces. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to be putting it down. So I have my fabric here. Now all of this is going to be my scrap. Again, that's what's going to be on the back, so it doesn't really matter what colors you use. So this is going to be my main fabric. Main fabric. I have 20 pieces of that. 20 pieces of these. And then these are going to be 10 pieces because that's what's going to go in the middle. Okay. So remember, main fabric is 6. Your scrap is going to be 5.5 square. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be placing them how I want them in my line. And I'm going to be making 5 lines, how I had showed you on my little design. And you can make it bigger. You do not have to go based on this. So I'm going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to do 5 lines like this. And then I'm going to be placing my other fabric in between. So I'm going to repeat this same process here, the same line, 5 times. So I already have my 5 lines. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to be grabbing one by one because this is how I want them to be done. So I'm going to sew it together. So I'm going to make sure that I do this again because we're doing a front and a back. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clip it. So this would be one line, and then you would do the exact same thing with the other lines, and then you can clip it and put it on the side. The same process again, so you can have the back one as well. Rows already clipped it in. And one thing that I forgot to mention is that you have to make sure that your fabric is ironed on. It has to be flat. So this is going to be my front and this is going to be my back. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 5 in the back. So I'm going to do the front. I'm going to put the other ones to the side. And then here, I'm going to grab it section by section. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And then I have my scraps. Now remember, your scraps are going to be 5.5. 5.5, 5.5. And I'm going to go ahead and just to organize myself, I'm going to put 5 pieces in each of the sections here, so I can have them ready when I'm about to sew. I have my first stack here and I have my scraps. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how we are going to sew it on. As you can see, obviously it is shorter on one side, but having this side short is actually going to give you the little fold that you want to create that little poofiness on your pillow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start sewing from right here. And as I get to the halfway mark, I'm going to go ahead and make a fold. That way I can get to the sewing part on the other end, as you can see. So that was my fold. And then I'm going to turn it around. And once I get here to the middle, I'm going to create another fold. So that way I can make sure that I attach this corner as well. And then I'm going to do the last corner. And I'm going to go ahead and create another fold. That way I can sew it all the way around in form of a square. You're going to leave the top open. This is where we're going to be putting in our filling to create the puffiness of your pillow. And since obviously I have my pattern that is facing up, I'm going to go ahead and leave this side opened. So I'm going to go ahead and do this to all of my stacks with my fabric. I have my scrap in the back, and I'm going to start at the top here. I'm just going to show you how I would create the little fold. Make sure you do front and back stitch. And as I get like halfway here, I'm going to go ahead and create the little fold just so that I can attach the other point to the other point of the fabric, corner to corner. And then go ahead and you can turn it around. Make sure that before you do that, align your fabric. And as you actually get here, you can, to make it easier on yourself, you can even fold it already here. That way you don't have to struggle once you get to the middle. As you can see, I've created a little fold on this side, and on the bottom, and I left my top opened. Okay, so as you're sewing, you're gonna make sure that you do that little fold so that way your scrap can coincide with your front. Now, you can always skip this step if you like, and you can actually cut your scrap 6 by 6 as well, and you're just gonna do a square, and you can leave it open just so that you can put in your filling. But I think this is gonna look cute with the little poofiness. And so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do that to all of my other stacks. Repeat the same process with all the other ones, the front and the back. One thing to keep in mind is as you're sewing, you make sure that you are lining it how you had it before, so that way you already have each pile done. So since this is my first pile that I'm already done with, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clip them together, and then I'm going to continue off with the next pile. Done with all of my fabric, all of my rows, and again I kept them with the clothespin so that way I know what row it will be. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab one of the rows, and I'm going to connect them together. I'm going to go ahead and place this one face down, and I'm going to sew it here. And then once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same process with the next ones. Place it down, connect it, and then place this one down, sew it, and then the last one, sew it here, and then open it up, and you will have a row. And this is why I said to make sure to keep it in the pattern that you already had it. And if not, you can always change it up. And you can always add more of the little squares if you would like to make it bigger as well. Two rows made. Okay, and you are going to go ahead and do the exact same thing with your other stacks. So just make sure also to separate the front and the back. Once you're done sewing up all of your stacks, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to be filling it in. I finished all of the rows already. I completed them, as you can see. And this is going to be a really cute poofy quilt pillow. And again, you can make it your own. You can even add another layer on the bottom. So you can make it 6 by 6, but it's up to you however you want to make it. I think this is going to be perfect. And now what I'm going to do for the filling, as you can see, I have a memory foam that my dog scratched up, and this is actually a twin memory foam as well. I don't have a twin anymore and I didn't want to toss it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut it into pieces, the whole thing, so that way I can use that to fill in the little pockets here. You can use whatever filling you want. The filling, you can buy it at Joann's or at Hobby Lobby. And it could be the filling that you would use on a pillow or on a teddy bear, as well on stuffed animals. So you can use whatever you like to fill it in. It took me some time, but I finished and I did the little squares because it would be a lot easier to be able to insert them into my fabric in here. So you can go ahead and you can again fill it in with whatever you like, to make it easier on yourself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew. And as I'm sewing, I'm going to go ahead and make a pleat, a little pleat here to be able to fold it up, so that way I can sew from this edge to this edge. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you that part. And I'm going to do what I do with this one, I'm going to do it with all my other rows as well. You put it right underneath and stretch out your fabric. And since you already made a fold in every of the corners, make sure that you do the fold also on the top here when you are sewing, so it can look, everything can look evened. I'm going to go ahead and do forward and back stitch, and then just make a straight line all the way across, making sure that you have that fold. You want to make sure that you don't stuff it too much either, because then if not, it's not going to allow you to sew. So as you're sewing, just make sure to push down your filling inside, whatever you use. Make your fold and then make a straight stitch of your first row. So make sure that you do the exact same thing that you did with this row with all the other rows as well. I'm already done with one of the sides of my pillow, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to sew them together starting from the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and make sure that your pattern, if you have pattern that is going one direction, just make sure that it's facing up. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'm going to sew right here on the bottom. Once I have this sewed, then I'm going to go ahead and now connect it to the next one. And that's what I'm going to keep doing with all the other ones. And then by the time you already go to the top, then you'll have all of these already connected. Okay, so I'm going to show you. It is going to be a little difficult once you are underneath the sewing machine, because you're going to have the filling inside. So let's go ahead and let's go to our sewing machine, and I'm going to show you. You're just going to make a straight line across. I'm going to connect my first two bottom layers, and I'm going to make sure that I push up my filling inside, and as you make sure that you can put it as close as you can. so you can grab onto the seam allowance where you had sewed, because if you don't cover this, then when you turn it around, you're going to be able to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start sewing. Make sure that you do front and back stitch. And as you are pushing it in, make sure that you are fixing your fabric. And as you make sure that you connect also your lines where the little squares connect. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you. So you have both already connected. And that's why I said to make sure to grab your seam allowance, because if not, you'll be able to see it if you stretch out the pillow. If you do not, then it will be covered up. But you want to make sure that they align with one another. So you see you have a straight line here. They align, and here it is off. So you see, so you have to make sure that when you are underneath it, if you don't want this, then make sure to do a little fold, so that way your seam allowances can connect with one another. This is my first pillow, so trial and error for the next one. Okay, now you're going to go ahead and you're going to do the exact same thing with your next layer. So that's why I said you don't want the poofiness to be through here, because if not, it's just going to be too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add it to my top here, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing. I love the way it's coming out, all pink. Next thing what we're going to do is we're going to put the right sides together. Just going to place it down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sewing from this side right here. I'm going to align my seam allowances together, and I'm going to go all the way around my pillow and then leave about maybe 2 hands. So about the size of your 2 hands, so you can have enough room to be able to pull it out. So that way we can then stuff it afterwards. Everything is sewed around except for the hole that you left, so that way you can turn it around. I ended up doing a zigzag form, so that way I can make sure that my fabric is sturdy and it does not come undone after maybe a few washes, if you ended up washing it or not. You can also go back and make sure that there are no holes where you had sewn, because once you turn it around, it's going to be difficult unless you want to hand sew it. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just grab a corner, and I will start turning it around. It might be a little bit difficult, but you can try your best and like play with it so that you can turn it around. It turned around, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stuff it. I still have some memory foam left over, and I ended up cutting them in slabs because I think that would be a lot easier. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and stuff it with it, and making sure that I measure it, but you can stuff it with whatever you like, with whatever you have. And then once you are done, then you're going to go ahead and just close it up, and you'll be done with your pillow. We're all done. So one thing to know is that I was only able to do this little piece with the sewing machine, and I couldn't do the rest. It was just the memory foam was not allowing me to pass it through the sewing machine, so I hand sewed the rest, and that was a lot easier than struggling to put it through the machine. I hope you guys like this tutorial. It was really cute. Again, you can fill it in with whatever you like. The memory foam that I have makes the pillow a lot heavier, but I wanted to use what I have. So for if you ever do a pillow, just make sure you can modify it however you like. You can add more layers to it, and obviously choose your own pattern of fabric. So I hope you guys like this tutorial. Make sure to like it and subscribe, and there will be more videos to come.